Hi everyone, it's Liam here from Rating the Races. So we have had a look at tomorrow's racing, and I've really focused on the handicaps rather than the graded races. I think quite a few of the graded races are going to go to the short price favourites. There's a few others I'll be watching out for, like Saint Noir, for example. Looking out for him to be given a very quiet ride, drop a couple of pounds, end up in that Grand Annual. But we've had a look at the handicaps, and there's a few that I like for tomorrow that I think are going to run some big races. And we'll start off looking at the 3 o'clock at Musselburgh, the Betemps qualifier over 3 mile. Now, it's qualifier, so we do have to be careful that we don't pick a horse, or our horse isn't ridden to finish top 4 but not actually win the race. I'm hoping that our selection is not being aimed just to qualify, but is also being aimed to win the race and go on. And the horse that I like here is Peking Rose for Fergal O'Brien. There's a couple of reasons for this. The horse is 9 years old. The horse is 9 years old and has only had, 12 starts under rules in in its 9 year age. Obviously, it made its debut in October 2020 when it was a 5-year-old. Since then, it's only had 11 starts. And actually, some of the form has been very good. 3 and a bit lengths behind Napper's Hill, half a length behind Napper's Hill, beating Hardy de Manil, 9 lengths behind Gelino Bello in a novice hurdle. Obviously, that horse went on to be a graded horse. 7th behind Langadan, then won at Aintree in a handicap. Came back last time out off the back of a bit of a layoff, 336 days, and just got up to beat Matchless. Now, that wasn't the best of races, but it was his first start for 300 and something days. And potentially, it was over a distance that was now on the short side. So they'd been going up to 2.5 mile, and they'd won this 2.5 mile race back here at Aintree. And then they returned over 2 miles 3 and 88 yards. I think the way the race was run just meant it didn't turn into a proper stamina test. And I think the horse will be better up at this 3 mile trip. I don't think the trip's going to be an issue. And I'm hoping that there's still plenty more to come. I mean, it was winning off 131. It's only running off 132. It's not like it's gone up £6 for winning a nothing race. It's running off of roughly the same marks as it has been running off. When it finished 6th in a handicap at Newbury, when it went off the 3-1 favourite, running off this mark in a Class 2 similar race. And I think this is where they're going to be aiming. Or this is not a race for Peking Rose to be getting handicapped or getting into the Betemps final, because it's 9. If it was 6, maybe Fergal O'Brien might be doing that, but I think he's got to be trying with this horse every run now because of its clearly fragile and doesn't always get to the track, and you want to be winning as many races as you can with that in mind and that at that age. And I think he's bigger price than I thought he was going to be. You can currently get 10-1 about Peking Rose. I think he's very progressive, and I think he can win off this mark. And hopefully, I then think he'll end up in the Betemps final, and I think he'll run a decent race in the Betemps final. I do think Peking Rose is a good horse. And as I said, if you went back to that previous form behind the likes of Napper's Hill, that was very good form. Finishing 2nd behind Napper's Hill in front of Stage Star in a bumper. That's really good form. And then, even finishing 3rd to Can Do Kid. What's Can Do Kid rated now? Can Do Kid is rated 141. Last time out ran in the Sky Bell for 141. Peking Rose is only rated 132. There's not a lot between them, or there wasn't a lot between them back at Ascot over hurdles. So I'm quite keen on Peking Rose here. I think that is the horse I think there's a few in here that are going to be handicapped, especially the likes of Absolute Notions. Surely that's just getting a qualifier. They're just coming over to get in the top 4 and qualify. Similarly, Springwell Bay might be doing the same. Get it qualified, get it in that Betemps final. The one who might not be is Al Muhit, but I couldn't be picking Al Muhit. I wouldn't know whether that horse is actually that well handicapped. But it's Emmett Mullins, so that's why it's going to go off a short price. So my selection is Peking Rose. Moving on to the 320 at Leopardstown, the 2 mile 5 handicap chase, and there was a few here that I was interested in and I was looking at, including, I'm loading it up on my other screen as well, a couple that are actually out the handicap. Percival Legalois, winner of the 3 mile handicap hurdle here last year, is out of the handicap, and I just wonder whether they're going to be maybe not targeting Cheltenham again. He looks like he's been aimed at a handicap. His career so far over fences has definitely been looking like he's being aimed at a handicap. I mean, last time out he was running in the Drinmore, the Grade 1 Drinmore. They was never in that to win or anything, were they? They were in that to try and get a handicap mark, and they've got a handicap mark. It might just be a pound or two lower than they were actually hoping. He won the handicap at Leopardstown this time last year off 125. Would run here off, what's he been given? 135. So he's still actually higher rated than when he won last time. But yeah, I just worry that this might not be the target in the end, and there's something else that they're going to target him at a later date. Potentially having run well in this race and gone up 6-7 pounds without actually winning it. The horse that I do like, another horse, that is out of the handicap that I'll definitely be interested in. I was interested in Cool Survivor for Gordon Elliott. I just thought that maybe there's something else in mind. Again, he looks like he's being aimed at handicaps, keeps running in graded races or beginner chases behind Colexios, Gaelic Warrior and MC Gardens. Not sure if tomorrow is the day though. The one that I do think will go well is one of our horses that we do like, Hollow Games. So I believe this horse wanted 3 mile, and I thought he was a perfect horse for the Thames final a couple of years ago, having finished third in a Martin Pipe behind Banbridge and Cobbler's Dream. Now Cobbler's Dream came into that race in good form, having won the Lanzarote hurdle. Banbridge is obviously a really good horse that was clearly thrown in. Hollow Games finished third. Hollow Games then went to Punchestown and finished 5th in a Grade 1. Recently, he's been over fences and he's been mixing different distances. So 4 runs ago, he was running in a 2 mile handicap. Then he went over 2 mile 6. Then he went over 3, and then he went over 3.5. And I don't think he's been getting home over those last couple of runs, these trips. However, this was probably one of his best performances. This 150.6, and that was when finishing third in the Galway Plate. Interestingly, also the ground. I do think this horse wants better going. Some of his poorer performances, including last time, came on soft. The time before that was on soft and heavy. But if you look at his good runs, maybe the run at Galway, that was on good to yielding. You could also say his run at the Cheltenham Festival, which was on good to soft, only beaten 3.5 lengths. Both of those as well, they were over 2 mile 4 and 2 mile 6. Well, this race is over 2 mile 5. So the trip is correct, the going is correct. He's handicapped nicely. I do think he's well handicapped. It's just when he puts it all in. And Jack Kennedy has chosen to ride him over all of the others that Gordon has in the race. And I think that's very interesting. And he is one that I'm pretty keen on, to be honest, for Gordon Elliott. Obviously, the Gavin Cromwell horse, I know the way you're thinking, has to be interesting. Been running in all the good races and the good beginner chases. But I'm just hoping that he hasn't got the best handicap mark, and maybe there's a bit more to come from Hollow Games. And Hollow Games is currently available at 16s, and I mean, if he runs his race, I think he'll be top 4 if he runs to his best, and hopefully he can go better than that and actually win a race. He does deserve to win a race, and I do think he's well handicapped. Moving on to the 235, the 335 at Musselburgh. And do you know what? I'm kind of annoyed with this race because I think Connections I'm hoping they don't ruin Cheltenham horses here. So there's 2 here that I really like for Cheltenham. Petit Tonnerre in the Plate over 2.5, and Thunder Rock in the Ultima over 3. Now, I can understand why they're running Petit Tonnerre here over 2.5 mile, because it is a handicap. So he does get to run in a handicap, and it is 2.5 mile, and maybe the plate might come too soon in his chase career. He's only had the 3 runs. This would be number 4. Yes, it could be his 5th run come the Cheltenham Festival. Maybe they want to give him a little bit more experience and think that actually we've got a nice handicapped horse here. When they go, they could even win this and go to the plate off the back of another run and more experience. Going directly to the plate from the Cheltenham run on the 1st of January, maybe after just 3 runs, that would have been a silly decision. The other horse, as I mentioned, that I like is Thunder Rock. But for the plate, I really think that horse wants 3 miles, not 2.5. And I think he just found everything happening too quick last time at Cheltenham over 2.5. I think he got beat by stayers at Carlisle. His run at Ayr behind That's Alright Gino, yes, it was a good run. I think he was beaten by a stayer. I think he wants 3 mile as well. And yeah, I wasn't too disappointed with his effort last year in the Brown Advisory when finishing 6th. He was 6th, it was a grade 1, and the race, has done alright. I Am Maximus, Jerry Colombe, Galea de la Toe, they all look decent horses. The Real Whacker ran better last time. And yeah, I think the 2.5 mile trip just might be too short for Thunder Rock, and it might be perfect for Petit Tonnerre. I think Petit Tonnerre will be running on strongly. I think Thunder Rock will as well, but maybe after Petit Tonnerre. So Petit Tonnerre is going to be my selection tomorrow at Musselburgh. It is worth 41 grand, so I do think they will be trying. I think all of these will be trying for with this race. Moving on to the 350 at Leopardstown, the handicap hurdle over 2 mile. This was won last year, I believe, by... Was this the one that was won by Gaelic Warrior? Very impressively. I do like one in this race. If you do hear my dog barking, he's just having a bit of a mad 5 minutes. I do like one in this race for sure. And that horse is Magical Zoe. She is favourite. Just Attaboy Charlie's being well supported. She is favourite, but I do think she'll win. I thought her effort behind Irish Point last time out in a grade 3, there was nothing wrong with that. I think Irish Point is a proper stayers hurdle horse. 5th in a Mares Novice grade 1 behind Ashrow Diamond. Nothing wrong with that. Ashrow Diamond's probably going to go 1st or 2nd favourite for the Mares hurdle behind Lossymouth. 2nd behind You Wear It Well. In a grade 2. Good effort. This is a drop-in class. Only rated 134. So doesn't carry right at the top of the weight, isn't carrying the 145 mark, is only carrying 11 stone 4. I think Henry de Bromhead has got one here that is very nicely handicapped in Magical Zoe. My only slight concern is that Antabar could also be quite nicely handicapped. Maybe they're waiting for that one for Cheltenham. Magical Zoe is trying tomorrow. And yeah, I do like Magical Zoe. I think she's going to take all of the beating in this race at Leopardstown. Her form is strong. She's in a handicap. And yeah, the distance shouldn't be an issue. She's got good enough form over 2 mile. Behind the likes of Irish Point, behind the likes of You Wear It Well. The 2 mile trip is probably her trip. Probably her worst run did come over 2.5 when she went too far in the grade 1. She ran a 5-1 that day for a grade 1 over a trip that ended up being too far. And you can currently get 6s about Magical Zoe. And the final one that I want to talk about tomorrow is going to be a bigger price selection. I'm hoping I've spotted this. In the 405 at Musselburgh. The horse I like here is the old boy. The 12-year-old Voix de Rêve. We know Voix de Rêve, on his best form, is ridiculously well handicapped. Now running off 115, having previously been as high as 156, I can see. So 158, ridiculously well handicapped on best form. But is clearly on the downgrade because he is now 12 and he hasn't done a lot recently. However, I think I can give him excuses for a few of his runs. So, last time out, it was on heavy going in a race that probably was just too good for him, wasn't it? It was a Class 2 featuring the likes of Sonagino, Vicky Vale, Benson, horses that were just much better than him. He went off 40-1 for a reason. The time before that, he finished 9th of 9 behind Matchless. And he was actually coming into it nicely. Go back and watch that race. He was running better than his 9th place position suggests when he made a terrible mistake 3 out. I think they were going to go close that day. He went off 5-1 that day, off a mark of 1-2-1, off a £6 higher mark, in a class higher than this, a class 3 instead of a class 4. He went off 5-1. 2 runs later, off the back of a run that he was going fine and one that he clearly hated the going, and it was just too competitive for him. He's what price is he tomorrow? They've currently got him at 16s. That is a massive price for me. If we go back to his run before that, he was 4th behind Russian Virtue in a class 3, off a mark of 1-2-3, so an £8 higher mark. He wasn't beaten ridiculously far. He was only beaten 10 lengths. And maybe that was just happening too quick at that point now. Maybe 2 mile isn't what he needs at this point in his career. We go back to the run before, 2 runs before that. He was beating Castlestown over 2.5 mile in a class 4. In a class 4, which is what he runs in, off a mark of 120. He runs tomorrow in a nigh on the same race, 2.5 mile, class 4, off a £5 lower mark. He won a 7-1 when he won. He's 16-1 tomorrow. I think he's a great price. I really do. I think he is. If he can show some of his form, if he can show his run when he was 9th of 9 when making that bad mistake, I think he'll go very close tomorrow. And he's a great price at 16-1. So they are my 5 tomorrow. I hope I didn't just affect my microphone. No, it's still working. I knocked to the lead. So they are my 5 tomorrow. Peking Rose. Hopefully they're aiming for this to win it, to then go to the Temps final off the back of a win, because they can't waste that horse because it's 9 and clearly has issues. Hollow Games in the 2.5 mile handicap. Gordon Elliott could have won this, in my opinion, with the Goffer. He comes in with a few others. Jack Kennedy rides Hollow Games. This is probably his optimum trip. We then have back at Musselburgh, Petit Tonnerre, who I think this is his ideal trip, 2.5 mile. Thunder Rock I think needs further, and Outlaw Peter I don't think is as well handicapped as those two. I like Magical Zoe in a handicap over 2 mile. I think she's very good, and I think she can win this. And finally, Voix de Rêve at 16s. Forgive him his last couple of runs, or the positions of his last runs. Last time out he hated the ground and it was too competitive. The time before that he was going fine when making a terrible mistake. If he didn't make that mistake, I think he would have gone close, off a £5 higher mark. So they are my selections for tomorrow.